Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to the Good Steward Homestead. I am trying something new. I'm on my Chromebook to see how this does as far as recording videos and that sort of thing. I don't know that I will be able to do the video editing and things like that like I usually do, but welcome to part 2 of Homesteading the Simple Life, and this video is entitled The Common Misconceptions of Homesteading. So I actually got on Google and I asked it to give me some of the top misconceptions of homesteading. So I wanted to share some of those as kind of like a part 2 to the other video that I shot today on homesteading as the simple life, and why we call it the simple life. So welcome back to Good Store Homestead, and I'm Katie, and if you like our channel, then please like, subscribe, and share it with other people who might also like to enjoy it as well. So like I said, I am on the Chromebook, so we'll see how this does, and it's not going to be anything fancy. So I'm just kind of talking to the camera here about what I wanted to share with you. So let's get down to it so that I'm not wasting a whole lot of your time or mine, and let's just jump right in. So one of the top misconceptions that Google gave me when I searched for it online is that the number one misconception that it gave me is that you have to have land to be a homesteader. So I can kind of understand why people might assume that you have to have like a whole bunch of land, like 40 acres or something like that, to be able to homestead, and it can certainly help. I'm not going to say that having land is not helpful, but it's not true. The amount of land that you have should be the last thing to stop you from having a homestead. In fact, in some ways, more land can actually be a hindrance when you consider the amount of maintenance that might be involved, or the equipment that you might have to have in order to maintain that property. So even with the most modest of backyards, less than an acre or so, you can run a fantastic homesteading setup. There's actually a book out there called Compact Farming, or Compact Homesteading. I think it's Compact Homesteading. Anyway, it's a good book for you guys to look up. But every homestead, every farm that book talks about is actually 5 acres or less, and they've been able to create this homestead setup that is really phenomenal. It's fantastic. So you can consider growing vegetables in containers. That's actually how I got started. Was I used 5-gallon buckets from Lowe's with holes drilled in the bottom for drainage and soil in order to grow vegetables. You can also do raised beds, or you can practice vertical gardening to really save space and maximize your yields. There's also a gardening method out there called the square foot gardening method, and if you research that gardening method, it actually talks about how to grow and produce as much food in your garden as possible in the least amount of space necessary. So I personally don't adhere to that 100%, but it did help me to reimagine my space, the gardening space that I have, and what I could do with it. And as far as like raising animals, meat rabbits often don't fall under livestock in local bylaws, so you can consider raising meat rabbits possibly. Now, of course, I would say to research what your bylaws and everything are for where you are living, but meat rabbits is an option. Quail is another option. Quail, they don't need a lot of space. They're a very small bird, and they lay one egg a day. You could also look into small breeds of chickens or other small animals that can provide a really useful purpose on your homestead, and they don't take up a lot of space. And then you can also consider the possibility, if it's within your budget, of maybe you can rent property from someone, or maybe you can create a deal with somebody who might have more space than you, where you both do it together. There's community gardens as well in some places, so you don't have to have a lot of land to be able to homestead. So there are lots of ways. So that you can just throw that misconception out the window. The second highest misconception that it gave me when I looked it up was that your product is free to you. So this idea of free eggs or free meat or free vegetables. The idea that the eggs from your hens are free, or any other product that you produce on your homestead is free, is a misconception. Because when you consider the cost of feed, bedding, maintenance, medical care, the time that you spend caring for those animals or those crops or anything like that, then those eggs or whatever the product may be suddenly become the most expensive ones you'll ever have. And that goes for any other item that you produce on your homestead. You may not be paying for the labor involved because you do it yourself, but that hardly makes it free. So to offset your cost there, many homesteaders, they might sell their products at farmers markets or to their neighbors or something like that, or they barter and trade those products for something else that they may need. So money earned often will go back into your homestead as well, in improving your systems, in providing better care or living conditions for your animals, or equipment maintenance for your gardening equipment, whether it may be a tractor or a tiller, or just buying a new handle for your shovel or your rake or whatever. So equipment maintenance. So again, this idea that the products produced on your homestead are somehow free, no. No, they're not. And they often, when you do start to consider the monetary value in them, you start to realize that it can be quite expensive. Now, you can get creative with that in reusing and recycling things. You can find cheaper ways of maintenance for your equipment or whatever. Maybe you don't buy the most expensive thing on the market. Maybe you shop around, or you buy used or something like that, or maybe to offset the cost of food for your chickens, you grow your own fodder, or you do feed fermentation to stretch stretch that food where it doesn't cost you as much. So there are things that you can do to offset that cost or to make it a little more cost effective, but it's still not free. So that was the second biggest misconception out there. The third misconception is that homesteading is effortless, that there's absolutely no work involved, and that is very much not true. Now, if you watched my previous video on why we call homesteading the simple life, then you realize that you're trading that hard work for other things that you value as being more important. But it's hardly effortless. Pop culture often portrays homesteading as idealistic and easy, and in reality it requires a lot of work and a lot of effort. It requires a lot of dedication and adaptability and constant learning, and while it is rewarding, in fact, I am a homesteader and I love this lifestyle because of those rewards. But it's also a very challenging lifestyle choice. Homesteaders have to be prepared for physical labor, weather fluctuations, and unexpected setbacks. The ability to be adaptable, because you don't always know what circumstances may pop up. So all of those hardly make it effortless. So I thought that was interesting that was considered, that's a big misconception that people often have, is that homesteading is labor free, when it's actually quite laborious at times. So the next misconception that I was given in my search was that homesteading was a complete isolation from society. Now, I actually talked about community and the importance of community for a homestead lifestyle in the previous video in part 1, but so this is a myth that homesteading means complete isolation. However, many homesteaders maintain really strong connections within their local community, whether it's participating in farmers markets, trading goods and services with their friends and family and their neighbors, sharing knowledge and experience, teaching one another. Homesteading doesn't have to mean cutting ties with the outside world unless you just want to. But personally, I wouldn't recommend it. Community is important in many different ways, including building the right one for you can be essential. So this idea that homesteading is complete isolation from society is just not true. In fact, the first 2-3 years that me and my sister lived here on our homestead, had it not been for our community, had it not been for family and friends and church members and things like that who cared about us, we wouldn't have made it, you guys. I will be forever grateful and thankful and appreciative to those people that helped us in those first few years, because we would not have made it. So in that regard, community can be very important and very essential for your survival and your success as a homesteader. So the next one I want to talk about also ties into the first part, in that there's this common misconception that you have to have extensive expertise, knowledge when it comes to be a homesteader, and that is somehow a requirement in order to be a homestead. So contrary to the misconception that homesteading demands extensive knowledge and expertise, many people who are homesteaders will tell you that they learned as they went. They learn as you go, and experience is a tough but expert teacher. Skills can be acquired gradually, though, and there's a very supportive community out there of experienced homesteaders who are willing to share knowledge through a wide variety of methods, whether it's online courses or how-to videos or books or social media or in-person classes, workshops, lectures, meet and greets, apprenticeships, internships, work studies. The list goes on. It's there. You just have to be willing to look for it. So you don't have to be just an expert in any one particular field or another to be a homesteader. And it's definitely, I think a lot of homesteaders will admit that it was a learn as you go. You can't possibly know every situation and scenario that you might come up against as a homesteader, and so you just learn it as you go. And the last misconception that I really wanted to share was that homesteading means giving up modern conveniences. And while in my opinion, homesteading involves simplifying your life, it does not necessarily mean giving up all modern conveniences unless you want to. But you don't have to, is the thing. That's not a requirement for homesteading. If you want to go completely off grid with an outhouse and no running water and no electricity or whatever, and you want to live like the Amish do, and again, nothing against the Amish or their lifestyle. I mean, I have learned a lot in observing and learning about their lifestyles. Nothing against them. And if that's the type of life that you want, then as a homesteader, then great. But it's not a requirement. It's not something that you have to do. So homesteaders often strike a balance between using technology where it enhances efficiency without compromising their core values of simplifying their lifestyle. So I think the biggest takeaway in the previous video on why we call homesteading the simple life, and this video on common misconceptions about homesteading, if there's anything that you can take away from it, it's remembering that homesteading is as diverse as the people who embrace that lifestyle. It's about creating a lifestyle that aligns with your values and goals, regardless of any preconceived notions or stereotypes you may have come across in your journey. So there you go. There are some of the top misconceptions about homesteading. And if you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe and share. And if you have any thoughts that you want to share, feel free to comment, feel free to email, and all of that. So y'all have a blessed one, and we'll see you soon. Bye.